in my opinion, Chowder isn't really that bad of a show, from my opinion. Especially when it comes to me actually watching the show the more I watch it. I can guarantee you that this show is pretty much one of the most creative shows that Cartoon Network has ever made. Especially that most of the characters are likable, with the exception of few. And I honestly think that Chowder is a really charming character, especially the fact that he's being played by a younger actor who didn't hit puberty by the time of his recording of his recorded lines of all the episodes. So, what is the episode that is considered the worst from the show, since that I'm discussing it as part of Cartoon Crisis 2? Well, it's the Lollistops. This episode is really infamous for being way too disturbing, which I'm gonna get to soon or later. Believe me, you're gonna be really disturbed. And also showing that Chowder is really unlikable in this and just come out really disturbing. Now, after going to the dentist, despite doing everything, Chowder completely screams off from leaving the dentist while heading to Mondar and Truffles. So after completely doing the dentist stuff and completely having his teeth completely clean, with also a bear in the house, which I have to admit, that's probably really hilarious to have the comedy from the show really work for its true potential. So anyway, the dentist gives Chowder a lollistop. That's what they call lollipops in the show. And Chowder really enjoyed it so much to the point that he wants another one. Here's the biggest issue. If Chowder really wants a lollistop, why couldn't he just wait until Mon and the others go to the grocery store to buy lollistops for him to suck on? If anything, that will probably make this episode a lot more pointless if you think about it. But Chowder really wants to go back to the dentist to get another lollistop. But he has to wait for another 6 months because that's the time where you have to go to the dentist in order to have the dentist look at your teeth. Anyway, this leads to the biggest problem with this. Chowder is so obsessed with lollistops that the more this episode basically is, the episode's moral is just basically that you should probably just do anything in your power to get something you want, despite the fact that there's a thing that you have to do, which was going to the dentist to have your teeth clean, and that's it. And I understand that food can easily drive people really upset, which does work when it comes to starvation, but this episode is basically applying that if you complain and cause destruction, you get the food that you want. That's basically what this episode is mainly about. Chowder does not want to wait for 6 months to get another lollistop, and he wants to figure out ways in order to have his teeth be removed, spoilers soon, in order to actually have new teeth be installed so that the teeth that he has can be cracking and not straight. And let me tell you, if there's one thing that makes Chowder really unlikable, is the fact that he's really relentless. Believe me, it's honestly really difficult to actually look at the positive episodes, especially what he did in this. After doing a trick with his finger, all of his teeth disintegrated. This is a cartoon, so I can let that slide. And when he completely shows Monzo that he has no teeth, he cannot go to the dentist because the dentist requires teeth in order to do some dental work, if that makes sense. So, the only way for Chowder to actually get a lollistop from his way is to talk to Gazpacho for help. There's a Tooth-Porium, well, all the tooths are located. And this also leads to a plot hole onto how Gazpacho has a lollistop badge on his chest, or whatever you call it. If he has the ability to do this kind of stuff and actually have a badge like that or a medal, then why couldn't you just give a Lollistop to Chowder to begin with? And honestly, will probably save this episode from being way too disturbing and save the budget. I know I'm being a bit too far, but this episode, once you see the second half of this, you might understand what I'm talking about. So anyway, they go to the Tooth-Porium, which, like I mentioned, has all the multiple tooths. And then we get to see the Tooth Fairy in stop motion, which is what this show is best at. And unfortunately, because of how expensive these tooths are, they're like $1 million, which is the show's equivalent of dollars. And I gotta say that the reasons onto why they completely made these tooths nearly $1 million is to have this joke from the guy holding the entire city to say that's outrageous, which is a quote that he said in one of the earlier episodes from this show. If this isn't desperation on having a quote that we've heard earlier this show, then I don't know what it is. I'm sorry, but I highly doubt in a show like this they really don't have to make these teeth really expensive for someone who doesn't have teeth. It really is. It's honestly really dragging out this episode's runtime way longer, which leads to Chowder and Gazpacho trying to sneak in order to get the teeth that Chowder needs in order to get a Lollistop. And with a joke that was actually kind of entertaining, the way that they snuck in is honestly, it's there. Other than just stealing the teeth, I honestly think that this only exists just to make this episode longer. I know I'm not giving this episode's runtime any much more credit, but the issue is that Chowder is desperate to get a Lollistop where he can just easily go to a store to buy one for himself, but then he has to do the most disturbing and in the most stupidest way possible is honestly this episode's biggest issue. I honestly think that this episode is trying way too hard to have so many gags while also making the characters really goofy as possible. If you don't believe me, you can really tell that everything that we've seen in this involving Chowder and Gazpacho facing off this guy. Yes, I know he has a name, but I don't remember it. I can't remember all the things. It's just really just forced filler, and it really makes this episode stay out much longer. But anyway, Chowder managed to get the teeth, and with the teeth in hand, he completely installs them in his jaw, and I can guarantee you, those are reasons onto why the next screenshots that you're about to see isn't the thumbnail of this episode, because onto why I have the thumbnail of having Chowder not having any teeth, well, that is one of the most disturbing and horrifying images from any other cartoon. If you thought that the Powerpuff Girls getting peeled off of skin and because they got sunburned and stuff like that was really disturbing, then you haven't even seen this episode. Chowder's goal is just trying to scale the dentist with this amount of teeth in his jaw is honestly horrifying than anything I've seen. And this is supposed to be a kid's show. Oh my god. Oh my god, that is so horrible. It really scares the dentist so much. Just look at this. This is so horrible and terrible imagery. This isn't humorous. This is trying way too far. And then when the dentist completely pointed that those Lollistops in the closet, Chowder just goes berserk and eating all the Lollistops as possible. But he gets completely choked because of the amount of teeth, because of the amount that he's eating, causing him to shoot out the Lollistops from his mouth and destroying the entire dentist building, which caused Gazpacho and Chowder to go to Tooth Prison. Or Tooth Jail. Yeah, there's actually a Tooth Jail. I honestly do not understand why they had to make this a plain jail, but Jeez. The lesson on having a character getting worked up over something that they can't have because of going to the dentist and just doing stupid ways is honestly more terrible than seeing Gumball and his family avoid his mother and getting the candy, either shoplifting, even if it was Richard's ideal, and completely messing with Nicole. But this is even worse when you completely see that Chowder is just doing this direction on just trying to get a Lollistop by getting his teeth removed and getting new teeth. Seriously, if this actually happens in the real world, I would probably do my best to actually respect people on what they do. Mainly the dentists who completely helped you on cleaning your teeth, giving you a Lollistop or Lollipop, whatever, and actually be more respectful. Chowder was really ungrateful in this, and the fact that he was so over the top makes this episode really hard to watch. And when Chowder just mentioned that he doesn't want any food to bother him ever again, he then sees prison food, which he completely contradicts himself by completely having food, causing Gazpacho to be really depressed while still in jail. When it comes to me looking at some of these episodes, when it comes to me thinking about the episode I was about to review for a combination of this review, I didn't think that there was an episode from Cello that was this disturbing and horrifying with the imagery that it has. The imagery in the show of the food and ideas that it has was great, but when you see that teeth inside Chowder, I am not even gonna show it. You know that this is a limit that you should not pass. I cannot believe how much this episode tries to be hilarious and forced, but at the same time, it makes it way too difficult and hard to watch. I honestly think that Chowder, despite being a child and apprentice on making the food with his family, should actually learn something in the fact that he didn't even bother on waiting to go to the grocery store with his family to buy Lollistops for himself, but the fact that he's just wanted to go back to the dentist that he went to that completely showed him what the Lollistops are like, and then this actually completely that the Lollistops completely controlled his ability to function, and had to go to a Tooth-Porium, which is uncalled for amounts of money, and had to sneak in order to get the teeth that he needs, and just go back to the dentist and just scare everyone inside. I really do not despise this show. I don't have the same opinions of the show like I did with Camp Lazlo, but just by watching this, jeez, I honestly think that they went way too far on the flatterization of Chowder's excitement. I mean, it's one thing on having his hand being glowed because of a machine incident, but completely being overreactive for a single food, for a Lollistop that you can get from other stores, I honestly think that they really need to actually read this script and actually make this a lot more better. But what we end up with is this. I really think that this episode instantly broke me for how disturbing and how unlikable Chowder was in this. And the fact that Gazpacho was just willing to help him, I honestly think they should have given him lessons on to actually wait and actually not have food get into him, and also completely tell him to go to different stores to buy Lollistops. This episode was just horrible. Really, really horrible. I told you we're going to get to one of the worst episodes from this month, and here they are. Believe me when I say this, is that by this point we're going to get to much terrible episodes as we keep going. I give this episode a 2 out of 10.